So tonight we have Ed Everett from the Davenport Institute at Pepperdine University. Ed is a former city manager, and his topic tonight is on civic engagement. And with that, please join me in welcoming Ed Everett.
Thank you. So, what I hope to accomplish tonight, is to raise the level of consciousness about what civic engagement truly is. Everybody believes they do civic engagement, and they all have different definitions of what it is, which is why oftentimes we get into a real mess when we engage people, because they're expecting this, and we're thinking we're going to do that, and the sides miss, and it turns rather badly rather quickly. So I'm going to try to give you some definitions of what civic engagement is, and then really drill down. I'm going to try to be very specific as to what civic engagement looks like. Why would I be telling you that? You're not the ones that will always be sort of designing the civic engagement process. But the more citizens understand what civic engagement is and the steps that you go through, the better you'll be at sort of going through that process and paying attention to them. So the people who just came in, if you could grab a table, we would appreciate it. Because the first thing I want to model is introductions. And oftentimes, and you know everybody. I mean, this table knows everybody. Well, one person didn't, but you all know each other. But I'm really trying to do it in a different way. So we never get people together when we civically engage. I was a city manager for 16 years in Redwood City and 8 years in Belmont, so I have 24 years. We never get people together now without doing some introductions in a different way. So what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to introduce yourself in the following way. You're not going to, say your name, but other than that, we don't care. What I want you to do is say something interesting about your family name or something interesting about your family history that you know. Now, this is not roots, and we're going to only devote about 10 or less minutes to this, so you're going to say it really quick and simple. My name is spelled this way because, when my great-grandparents came across Ellis Island, they changed it. There's something interesting about my family when they moved here. So it's just to share a little bit. So we each have a little hook on each other. So please, could we have one? Could you move over to this table so that we'll have sort of an equal number? He'll sort of jump into this table. And why don't you come up to this table? And then if you'd all introduce yourselves, go for it.
Put in an application.
If you could kind of wrap up. So what I want to do is role model this as well. So my name is Ed Everett, and all of you have heard about me, Edward Everett. You all know me. You see, I come from a great line of Edward Everetts, and my great, I think that's correct, cousin was a very, very good speaker. And so most of you probably memorized his speech because he gave a 3-hour presentation, which nobody remembered. And then this Hanyak came in and gave like a 7-minute speech, and everyone remembered his. Edward Everett was the orator at the Gettysburg Address. In those days, they had professional orators, and they spoke eloquently and for long hours. And then Abraham Lincoln came in, spoke for 7 minutes, 5 minutes, and everyone kind of remembers his talk. So that's mine. We have a 5th-generation Californian. We have people from the Axis powers here. I mean, it's just a great way to connect. Never start a meeting without trying to connect. So that's the first rule and thing we'll try to do. So there are several views of civic engagement. Let me just try to go through them. There is a sort of a staff view of civic engagement, and there's a resident view of civic engagement. And they're usually dramatically different. Now, I'm picking extremes because I think that's helpful to understand. Obviously, everything's in between. We have what we call the institutional control model. It was invented, and the name was given to it. I mean, the father of this was Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who said that the purpose of civic engagement is for the public sector person to sit and meet with the private sector and get them to believe what the public sector person believes. civic engagement. It is to get you all to agree with me if I'm the city official. And that model, unfortunately, most of us in cities have been stuck in that model for an awful long time. I'll go into why we get stuck there, but we get stuck there. We think civic engagement is selling you on our really good idea. Now, but the residents, you guys, you don't get off easy. Because the one that probably epitomizes it is Saul Alinsky from Chicago. There's a couple people from Chicago here. I remember one. And so you probably remember Mr. Saul Alinsky. And his neighborhood organizing model was to gather your forces and scare the enemy. Big numbers and scare the enemy. The enemy would be probably city staff or city council. And so we're gathering our forces to force you or scare you into doing something. If our forces aren't big enough, we kind of hide our forces, but we make an awful lot of noise. We rattle the tin cans and shake the pots and everything and make a lot of noise as if we were big. And thousands of people agreed with us. And if we're not even that big, we just stink up the place. And the model is, most people think it's civic engagement. Yeah, I'm going to go down to council tonight and civically engage with them. No, you're going to go down to the council and lobby them. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes, from the public sector, we're thinking that civic engagement is to convince you to buy into one of our wonderful ideas. And unfortunately, from the residents, it's oftentimes, if I have enough people and I push them really hard, we can scare the council or the staff into doing what we want. And so neither of those are civic engagement. There is a third way, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So one of the things that I've learned as I started doing this and trying to train people about what civic engagement was we really took the sort of the backwards approach, and we said, what isn't it? What's it? What it isn't. And so let me be real clear what it isn't. It is not selling the public on a bond issue, a program. It's not convincing the people to go along with this wonderful idea that the Park and Rec people came up with, and usually they come up with wonderful ideas, to be honest with you. But it's not to just do that. You see, there's nothing wrong with that, though. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. For trying to sell the citizens on something is fine. But it's called marketing and public relations. And there's a place for it, and it's important. If you have a bond issue and you want to get people to vote for it, it's okay. You use marketing or public relations. But don't call it civic engagement, because you're not engaging, you're selling. Or you're trying to convince someone to come to your point of view. So that's what it's not. It's not. And for residents, let me tell you, civic engagement is not a meeting that you go to bitch, moan, and complain and find fault. That can feel good because you might be angry, but it's not civic engagement. It's a lobbying effort. When you guys go to the council and you want to say, you know, I'm going to bring my 50 closest friends, you're there to influence them, but not civically engaging. It's not a process that happens at council meetings. Some councils get this and some don't. So the way I define this, when we do some training with the National League of Cities, the council meeting, and finally when we got through this in Redwood City, they got it. The council meeting is the community's business meeting done in public. It's a business meeting that's done in public, as required by law, but where it should be done anyway. Civic engagement cannot, will not, does not, and has never happened at a council meeting. Now, that's not to criticize the council or the meeting, and that's not to criticize the people coming to them. That's not the venue for civic engagement. You can never have civic engagement with 3 minutes at the mic. 3 minutes at the mic is stipulated by state law. I don't know, it doesn't say 3. It says you have to do some period of time. But, and it's not unuseful. It's so that council can hear a particular point of view, but they are not to respond. It's you're talking about items not on the agenda. So even on a big item on the agenda, there are presentations made, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's no dialogue, and there's no discussion. So the way you have a great public meeting, a business meeting done in public, is to do civic